Day 16, 365 in Vegas, coming to you today from Las Vegas Distillery here in Henderson, Nevada. I'm here with Sid. What makes Las Vegas Distillery so special?
So we're actually the first distillery here in the state of Nevada, even since before Prohibition.
So climate, a lot of people probably think, oh, it's not good for distillery, but it actually is. Why is that?
Yeah, so the climate here, obviously we have a lot of high temperatures, not a lot of humidity as well. So when we're actually aging the whiskey barrels, the whiskey tends to actually age faster in this kind of environment because of the constant interaction that the alcohol has with the wood as it's resting in the barrel. Today I just want to kind of walk you guys through kind of the process. Here in the beginning, depending on what type of alcohol that we're manufacturing, depends on the type of raw material that we're actually using. This here is the molasses. This is actually being used for the rum. When it comes to the whiskeys, all the whiskeys are going to be made from cereal grains of some sort. You can see we have some milled corn here, we have our rye, the barley, we have some wheat as well. Our whole kind of main goal here is to create a sugar content, and the reason we need the sugar is for the yeast. So we're almost like a brewery here in the first 4 or 5 days where we're only using yeast to create alcohol, and then the second part of the process, we're actually taking that roughly beer or wine and separating the alcohol from that grain and water mixture or that grape and water mixture. Here on the right, this is what kind of grinds the grain and breaks it down. This allows us to kind of expose some of the starch that's on the inside of that grain. Therefore, when we add our enzymes, they have a little bit more conversion or conversion possibilities, I suppose. After we grind the grain, the auger, the green tube, carries that grain into the top of the cooker or the mash tun. This here is more or less like a big mixing bowl. So we have an agitator in there. You can kind of hear the motor going right now. And we use steam as our heating source. We heat 900 gallons of water and 2,500 pounds of grain. We mix that together, heat it up, cool it down. I add a couple enzymes, and in that process, I change the starches in the grain over to sugar. From there, I can throw the yeast into the mixture. The yeast is just a little single cell organism. They actually eat that sugar, and then they change that sugar over to alcohol and CO2. So right now, we have our 1,000 gallons of 100% corn mash here in the cooker. I'm getting ready to actually add the yeast to this mixture, and I'll show you a little bit about how this looks right now. Carl manufactured pot stills. Carl is one of the oldest manufacturers of the stills here in the world. They're from Germany. We have 2 stills. The one on the left, kind of the helmet on top of it, the swan-shaped helmet. That's more of a traditional Scottish whiskey style making helmet. The helmet on the right in rows, that's more of a French cognac style making helmet. And then the large column in the middle specifically, we need that to manufacture the vodka. Right now, we just started up the first distillation of a moonshine.
It is high, as you can tell by the smoke.
So it's 100% corn mash. It was fermented for 4 days, and the starting alcohol percent on that mash is going to be about 9%, 9.5% alcohol. And what I'm doing in the distillation process, more or less, is just evaporation and condensation. So the alcohol boils at a lower temperature than the water. So what I'm doing, I'm using steam as our heating source. That's heating up the grain and water and alcohol mixture. I'm boiling the alcohol off. The alcohol goes from liquid phase to vapor phase. The alcohol vapor leaves through the mouth of the swan, goes over into the silver column. That's our condenser, just a coil surrounded by cold water. I condense that alcohol vapor back into a liquid. And now what we have is no longer that grain and water mixture at 35% alcohol. Now it's just kind of like a cloudy, oily liquid. Whiskey will do the same process. I actually take that liquid, put it back in the pot still, one more evaporation and condensation, and then what will come out is our moonshine. So this is the traditional moonshine. It'll be about 70% alcohol or 140 proof. And in order to make this moonshine a whiskey, the next step is just to put it in the barrel. After we put it in the barrel, we'll actually have our bourbon in this case. So this was a 100% corn mash recipe. For bourbon, it has to be at least 51% corn in the recipe. Also, the barrel right there behind you is North American white oak wood. It's a brand new barrel. And this 1 grain bourbon was actually aged for 6.5 years here in the distillery. You can see the inside of the barrel is charred and toasted on the inside. More or less it's burned, so the char is a high amount of flame for a short amount of time. The toast is a lower flame for a longer time. What they kind of want to achieve in that process, they want to create this charcoal layer that contains carbon. That carbon acts as like a mellower or a smoother of that moonshine, helping remove some of the sharpness and the bite from it. And then also they're caramelizing the natural sugars in the wood. That allows you to have those hints of flavor such as citrus, caramel, almond. That's what's going to allow you to kind of get that flavor is just by how they kind of char and toast the inside of the wood there. After the whiskey's aged, then obviously all the color is coming from inside the barrel, so you're going to have a darker color overall. Also, you're going to get about 60 to 70% of the flavor of the whiskey from the barrel as well. Again, like we talked about in the beginning, the environment here in the desert, much different than traditional places like they're aging the whiskey in Kentucky and Ireland, Scotland, things like that. So you can actually see, according to these two staves here, the one on the bottom, that wavy kind of whiskey line, that one was aged in Kentucky. They traditionally have kind of the 4 seasons there, so there's a fluctuation of temperature throughout the year. When it's warm out, the alcohol expands, forces its way through the charcoal, kind of mellows out, enters the wood, picks up color and flavor. Then when it's cold out, it contracts, brings that alcohol back through the charcoal to mellow out again into the middle of the barrel. The one on the top, that kind of uniform line, that was aged here in Las Vegas in this desert. And you can see instead of that wavy kind of line, that uniform line is basically because it's hot here for about 7 or 8 months throughout the year. And what happens, the alcohol makes one expansion through the charcoal and it stays expanded, kind of constantly interacting with the wood. So in turn, it picks up more color and more flavor quicker. When it's cold for 3 or 4 months, it takes all that color and flavor, brings it back through the charcoal. All right, guys, welcome to the tasting room here at Las Vegas Distillery. We obviously have quite a selection and a little bit for everybody. Our vodka is a wheat-based vodka. We distill it 3 times through our system. Tends to have more of a sweeter flavor, kind of a softer finish. We'll follow that up with the gin. The gin starts off as our vodka base at 95% alcohol, and then we infuse lemon, lime, orange, cactus leaf, cactus fruit from the prickly pear, along with about 7 to 8 different herbs and botanicals. The rum, that's going to be made from that molasses that we saw earlier over by the cooking and mashing area. Then we have our moonshine, same thing that you saw out there with the pot stills. This moonshine has actually been diluted down from 70% alcohol to 50% alcohol, or 100 proof. And once you take that moonshine and you put it in the barrel for those 6.5 years, you get the 1 grain bourbon. The Nevada 150, this is a limited edition recipe that we did to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Nevada entering the Union or becoming a state. So we have the Lucky 7. This is 40% wheat with 10% of 6 other grains. A lot more flavor than a traditional whiskey. This one was aged for 5 years in the 30-gallon barrels. Then we have the old 7-grain whiskey. This is actually the oldest whiskey in the state of Nevada right now. It was aged for 7 years and 6 months. This we have is going to be the Spelt and Rye whiskey. This one was aged for 2.5 years in the used bourbon barrels. Moving on to kind of the flavored products that we have the 2 flavored moonshines. The Grandma's Apple Pie Moonshine, fairly popular one here in the Valley. This actually starts off as the vodka base, and then we add apple juice and cinnamon with a couple other ingredients to make it kind of that traditional kind of sweet apple pie flavor throughout. And then we have the newer product, the Sinshine. This just was released about 3 months ago. And then the last of our products is going to be the liqueurs. These also started about 3 to 4 months ago. Variety of different flavors. We're going to have the Irish caramel, more of kind of like a cream-based liqueur minus the cream. Then we have our coffee bean, kind of a straightforward coffee flavor all the way through. The double chocolate actually tastes more of like a liquid Tootsie Roll, I suppose. So if you're interested in the Tootsie Roll, it might be a good flavor for you. The banana will tend to taste almost like a banana Laffy Taffy. Then we have our coconut, the strawberry, and peach. These are all from the... So we hope we have kind of something for everybody, no matter what you drink. I appreciate you guys coming down. If you wish to learn more about the distillery or taste any of the products, we offer our tours Tuesday through Friday at 3 p.m. On Saturday, we do the tours at 12, 2, and 4. And then we have tastings as well, just solo tastings. Without the tour, we offer those at 4 o'clock Tuesday through Friday, and then at 1, 3, and 5 on Saturdays. Hope to see you guys down here. Follow your heart and raise your spirits.